Join Ashutosh Bhai and everyone else in remembering Jagdeep Chokar Saab, an inspiration for all of us. Uh, I'll limit myself to SIR. What's happened over the years is that the conversations around democratic reform, and there are many in the room who would remember the 1980s, 70s, and 80s. The conversations were about democratic reform. In 1990s, it was narrowed and we are down to conversations on electoral reform, which is a subset of democratic reform. And sadly, now we are down to electoral integrity, which is a tiny subset of electoral reforms. So instead of moving forward, we are actually now taking steps back to reclaim this tiny little bits. What is electoral integrity? Electoral integrity is that the persons who vote, the person who's voted by the people should be elected. That's electoral integrity. We're down to debating that. And just when we thought that this is rock bottom, now we are discussing how to retain the universality of the universal adult franchise. This is our progress as a nation. It's exactly 3 months since SIR was unrolled. How do we measure the success or lack of it of the media in informing the country about the SIR? I'll mention a few things and leave it for all of you to judge whether the media has done what it should have done. To my mind, the widespread impression, even today, possibly among some people sitting in this room, would be that SIR is about cleaning up the voters' roll. SIR is a revision of voters' list in Bihar because there were some problems in Bihar's voter list and it needed to be pruned. So it's a somewhat intensive exercise about pruning and correcting and improving the voters' list. This is a widespread impression even 3 months after this exercise was launched. Why am I surprised at this widespread impression? Because it's entirely mistaken. It is not a revision, it is not about Bihar, and there is nothing special about it. I keep saying special intensive revision is not about revising the voters list in Bihar. It is about revising the principles on the basis of which voting right is given in this country. It is, in that sense, a tectonic shift in the architecture of universal adult franchise in India. Now, this looks like a very big deal. Let me just say, and I'm very happy that Qureshi Saab speaks after me because he would correct if I'm making any mistakes in my statements. This special intensive revision does two things which are extraordinary in the history of Indian elections. Number one, it shifts the onus of putting someone on electoral rolls from the state to the individual. India is one of those countries in the world where putting you on voters list is a state initiated activity. Someone comes to your house as they come during census, put you on the voters list. Of course, you can later on go and make corrections. If you want to move to some other place, you make an application. But by and large, someone comes to your house and gives you voting right. This is what has actually ensured that India's universal adult franchise remained universal. Those countries which have followed the other method, namely, it is individual's problem. You go and register yourself. If you haven't applied, what can I do? This is the United States of America. This is also, unfortunately, South Africa. And the results in all those countries are that the bottom 20-30% are knocked off from the voters list. So with one stroke, we have shifted from a state-initiated voter registration to an individual initiated voter registration. You might say, no, 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 the state was playing role. Yes, but what was they doing? The BLO was simply giving you an enumeration form to fill and say, 25 तारीख तक दे देना, अगर नहीं दिया तो छुट्टी. This has never happened in the history of India. This is against the fundamental tenets of universal adult franchise in India. Number two, the second principle was that there was a presumption of citizenship. If I come to your house, I presume that you are a citizen of India, unless I get a very special objection or evidence to the contrary. I never asked you for documents. In SIR, every single individual is being asked to provide documents because now the presumption is, I don't know whether you are Indian citizen or not. Please prove it. These two fundamental changes are not about revision of voters list. These are about changing the fundamental principles on the basis of which right to vote has been granted in this country. Now you tell me, did the media tell you that this in the last 3 months? Some of them did, and you mentioned that. We must salute all of them, those who did. But in reality, what did the media tell you? If this abiding impression still remains, who is responsible? Now let me rattle off a few things that happened in practice. There was large-scale forging of enumeration forms in Bihar. Forms were being filled because the Election Commission wanted to show that we have 90% plus forms. Forms were being forged, filled by BLO. People in whose names forms were being filled had no idea that forms were being filled. Did the media report it? Did the newspapers of Patna report it? And this is the most shocking thing. Bihar has a very long tradition of glorious journalism. And the large and Bihar गांव में अखबार पढ़ा जाता है, लोग सचमुच चाट जाते हैं अखबार को बिहार में. And nowhere was it reported in this biggest scandal of Bihar, did not feature anywhere in the newspapers of Bihar. Documents, this issue has been discussed to great extent because Election Commission not only wanted you to prove your citizenship, they wanted you to prove it through documents which Election Commission knew you do not have. So that bit got covered a bit, and the entire discussion was only about the nature of documents and so on and so forth, Aadhaar and so on. But were you told that in reality, Election Commission, while Election Commission would not accept a document which was there with almost everyone, which is Aadhaar, Election Commission invented a 13th document which did not exist in its list, which has nowhere been mentioned in any law or rule, which is Vanshavali. Only Indian Express did a few stories on that. Because once the case came to the Supreme Court and the figure of 65 lakh looked too big to handle politically, then the Election Commission stood on its head. Sorry, Qureshi साहब ये सब बातें कहनी पड़ रही हैं. They're standing on their head now to ensure कि यार 65 से ज्यादा ना हो जाए. So now the oral instructions are काटना नहीं है. And they are saying, sir, document नहीं है, क्या करें? Then they are saying, कोई बात नहीं, वंशावली से कर दो. What is वंशावली? If I can show that earlier the rule was that you have to show that your parents, that if one of your parents is in 2003 list, then you don't have to give their certificates, but you have to give your own documents nevertheless. Then the Election Commission said you don't have to give your own documents. And now the Election Commission is saying, if you can find any mama, chacha, nana, anyone in the voters list of 2003, you are exempt. All this is happening orally, nothing on the paper. The biggest scandal, did the media report it? And one final bit, Pamela, I know I've crossed my limit. This whole business of illegal migrants and Bangladeshis. Let me now just give you facts and figures. On 24th June, when Election Commission gave the SIR notification, one of the probable reasons why it is being done is illegal migrants, illegal foreign migrants. But when Election Commission files a 900-page affidavit in the Supreme Court the word foreign migrant does not feature. Election Commission gives you daily reports. How many people have filed, how many dead, how many absent, how many permanently migrated, and what not. At the end of it, how many foreigners were detected? Not one figure given so far. Zero, I assume. All right, Election Commission failed, but there are so many Bangladeshis and Rohingyas in Bihar, as you know. What did the BJP do? How many objections has the BJP filed on the millions of Bangladeshis and Rohingyas in Bihar? Zero. As per Election Commission statement in the Supreme Court, zero objections. चलिए बेचारी बीजेपी भी फेल कर गई. What did the people do? And this is the new data I'm sharing with you. We have now looked at all the objections filed in Bihar. 3 lakh objections were filed, of which 987 objections have been filed on the ground that someone is a foreigner. Out of 7.24 crore, 987 people were suspected to be foreigners. But hold your breath. Of them, 700 are Hindus. Only 221 are Muslims. And in case it did not amuse you enough, out of these 927 persons who are suspected to be foreigners, who is objecting to them? 702 of them are objecting to themselves. Yes, 700 people have filed applications in Bihar saying, please remove my name because I'm not a citizen of India. In other words, come and arrest me tomorrow morning. Isn't this joke worth being on the front pages of newspapers of this country? I rest my case here.
I think you are the